Good morning. Thank you for attending today's open forum. This is a very important part of the process in helping the Board of Regents determine who will be the next president of CU. It is my pleasure to introduce the regents who are here with us today: Chair Kroll, Regent Montero, and Regent Spiegel. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce the chair of our Board of Regents, Jack Kroll, who will moderate the discussion. Jack? Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor Reddy. I'd like to welcome everyone to the UCCS Open Forum. Today's forum is an opportunity for our community to engage with Todd Solomon, the board's finalist in the search for CU's president. We will hear a few remarks from Mr. Solomon, and then we will open it up for questions from the floor and the community. We're looking forward to a rich and thoughtful conversation today. With that in mind, we're asking everyone to pose their questions succinctly. This will allow us to get through more questions in the time that we have. Many people submitted questions in advance, and we will also have people who are participating and submitting questions via the live feed. So welcome to everybody who's joining us via the live feed as well. To ensure fairness, we're going to take 2 questions in the room, then take a question from those on the live stream, and then we'll handle a pre-submitted question. I'd also like to remind everyone of the link to the survey, which can be found on the CU Presidential website, and perhaps we can get that out afterwards, if not up behind me here shortly. The regents are asking everyone to send their feedback, and we will take all of this feedback into account before making a decision. So a little bit about the process. This has been an inclusive process from the start. The board held listening sessions across the state with more than 40 stakeholder groups. The board hired a search firm to build a talented and diverse search pool. The board assembled a search committee that represented the diversity of Colorado and had members from every major stakeholder group in our communities. I want to thank the search committee for their tremendous work and recognize those members of the search committee that are here with us today. And I believe I saw Dean Vidler is here, and I know Professor Mary Cousins-Reed is joining us via the live stream. If there are any other search committee members here, we deeply appreciate the work that you all put into to get us to this point. So at the conclusion of the work of the search committee, what they did is forward to the board, per our policies, 5 highly qualified, unranked candidates for our consideration. Those top candidates were vetted and interviewed by the board. We asked all the candidates interviewed by the board if they were willing to go public as one of multiple finalists. All but one candidate declined. Given this reality, the board had to choose a candidate to forward to the next stage in the process. The community now has a chance to meet the finalist and provide feedback to the board before the board meets next week to make a decision. We believe Todd Solomon is the best person to move forward in this process. And I'd now like to say a few words about Mr. Solomon before I hand things over to him. He stood out during our process for his experience, his knowledge of Colorado and the CU system, and his ability to work with multiple stakeholder groups to advance an institution's priorities. Mr. Solomon's career has prepared him for the position. He is a CU alum. He has served in the legislature. He has served as the cabinet member for 2 state governors. He has been at CU for over a decade now and has served as CU CFO and senior vice president during his tenure at the university. For this past year, he has served as the interim president. More details about his background can be found online, and I'm sure Mr. Solomon will share some more details with us here soon. Todd is a respected member of the CU community who has a collaborative style. He works well with the regents, the chancellors, our faculty, students, and staff, shared governance leaders, and community stakeholders. Please join me in welcoming Todd Solomon.
So thank you very much. Hello, UCCS. It's nice to be here. I just wanted to start by introducing my wife, Michelle, who's sitting right here. So there's Michelle. Thank you. And I think my parents and my kids might be watching. So, hi, Mom. And so I just wanted to start, though, with just telling you a little bit about myself. So I am so humbled and so honored, and thank you to the Regents for selecting me as the finalist. As you heard, I am from Colorado. I love the state. I love the university. I graduated from CU, and I wouldn't be here standing, talking to you today if it wasn't for CU and the opportunities that CU gave me. So what an incredible honor, to be able to be here with you today, with that being my starting point. So I am truly committed to our public mission and to our commitment to Colorado, to serve the people of Colorado and to serve the people of this country. And when I think about our mission, I really put it into 5 buckets. One is our commitment to student success and education. The other is research. I think about the work that we need to do in the space of DEI. Our commitment to serving the people of Colorado and the community, and of course our healthcare mission as well. And I'd love to talk. I'm sure we'll talk about pieces of all of that today as we go on. But I wanted to just focus on 2 of them real quick to just give you an idea of what I mean when I talk about us wanting to see you to be the best. What does that mean? So when we're talking about student success and we're talking about teaching, our CU strategic plan really gives us a guide map for what we have in mind when we think about success in that space. And that, to me, is graduation rates and retention rates. And we have work to do. The chancellors and I all agree, and the CU community agrees that we need to do better in that space. We are not retaining students the way we would like, and we are not graduating students the way we would like. And there's a gap between our total student population and our underrepresented student population when it comes to graduation and retention rates, and that's completely unacceptable. And it's our job to work to close that gap. And when we talk about aspirations, we've actually set goals in the CU strategic plan relative to graduation and retention rates. And we compare ourselves to our peers, and we look at our peer averages when we do that. But to me, we are striving to get to our peer average when it comes to graduation and retention rates it's a way station. That's not our destination. Our destination is to be the best compared to our peers when it comes to graduation and retention rates, with no gap between the total student population and underrepresented students. So that's like a real thing that I mean when I say the best. That's what I want to be the best at. Then another thing that I just wanted to highlight real quick is DEI. What do I mean when I say I want us to be the best when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion? To me, it's simple. But it's hard to get it done, and that is to reflect the diversity of our great state. Now, Colorado has become more diverse over time, and it's becoming more and more diverse over time. And one of the statistics that really pops out for me on that is that when you look at the Latino population of Colorado, when you look at the people in the age group, I believe it's like 16 to 65 or something like that. It's about 22. Latinos are 22% of the Colorado population. But when you look at people who are 17 and younger, it's well over 35%. And so Colorado has changed. It's not just that we are changing; we have changed. And at CU, on all of our campuses, we don't reflect the diversity of this great state, not with our students, not with the faculty, and not with the staff. And that's going to take a concerted effort for all of us over a long period of time to make sure that to get to the point where we actually do represent the diversity of the state. But that's about more than just recruiting people from diverse communities to come to school here and come to work here and come to teach here. We need to have a culture where people feel welcome, where they feel like they belong. And I just said the word welcome, and I don't like that word because the word welcome implies that someone's a guest. You're welcome into my house. Well, this is all of our house, right? It's the University of Colorado, not the university of a part of Colorado. And we need to get to the point where we are weaving this diversity of Colorado into the very fabric of CU, so that everybody in Colorado feels like they belong here. And that's when we can retain, not just recruit, but retain the students, retain the faculty, retain the staff. And the work to do that is going to be ongoing. There is no finish line on this one. This is going to be an ongoing effort, and it's all hands on deck. It's not just the people who have diversity, equity, and inclusion in their job titles. It's all of us, and it's not just people on campus. It's people from the community. It's something that the regents have been very clear is a top priority for them. It's a top priority for me. I'll be held accountable. The regents will be held accountable by the voters. I'll be held accountable by the regents. I'll hold the chancellors accountable, and they're going to hold the campus accountable. And we can talk a little bit more about what that means as well. And that really gets into the what have I done in this space over my career. So I like Regent Kroll mentioned, I have been around for a little while here in Colorado, and so I was in the state legislature for 8 years, and I would love to talk about some of the things that we got done there, that I got done there when I was a member of the Joint Budget Committee and in the state legislature. Relative to higher education in general, I've been a strong advocate for higher education. I talked about higher education in my speech in 1994 when I ran for the state legislature. We have the same problems today that we had back then, and I would love to talk a little bit about that. Then after serving in the legislature, I opened up my own business, and I did some lobbying, and I wanted to lobby for things I believed in, and I did. I was so fortunate to be able to build a business around things that I believed in. So I lobbied for things like mental health, developmental disabilities, K through 12 education, child welfare, and of course, CU. I represented CU as well. And then I got a call from Governor-elect Ritter, who asked me to become the budget director for the state of Colorado. And I did that, and it was awesome. And then we had this horrible recession in 2008, and we had to balance the state budget, and we had to cut so much money to meet our constitutional obligation to balance the state budget. But he and I saw eye to eye. We wanted to protect human services. We wanted to protect K-12, and we wanted to protect higher education, and that's exactly what we did. And so maybe we could talk about that a little bit today too. And then after that, I got a call from Bruce Benson, and I became the CFO for the CU system. And then I was honored about 9 months ago, when the regents asked me to be the interim president, and I've been doing that. And so that's a little bit of my background. I love this place. It is such an honor to be here talking to you today. I would love to be able to continue to lead the university to great and incredible things, and I look forward to the conversation. So ask me your questions. I'm ready.
Great. So we do have 2 microphones here, one on each side of the room. We just ask that if you'd like to ask a question from the room, you come forward and step up to one of these 2 microphones. And you, sir, look like you are ready to be the first question.
Congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you.
What will you be doing to recruit Chicano, Latino, and Black professors and educators? And this means homegrown people from Colorado.
Well, homegrown people is nice, so I'm all for that. So I think that's it's an area where we actually have to put resources toward it. And so the chancellors and I have been talking about this. How do we make progress in this area? So first is to increase our work to recruit, faculty and staff of color. And to do that, we need to have resources available. And the chancellors have actually requested these resources, and I've provided them so that they can do the work, the outreach work that needs to be done in the community to go out and truly recruit underrepresented faculty and staff. The other is to make sure that the funding is available to pay folks. And we've talked about that as well. And how can we make sure that we're compensating people appropriately within the the limitations that are required within the Equal Pay Act here in Colorado. And but to me, it's about more than just, and it's going to take time, right? Because faculty and staff hopefully do not turn over quickly, but as we go on, we need to make sure that when we're creating search processes, that we have culturally competent people engaged in those search processes, so that they know how to engage with the people that they're interviewing, and hopefully identify the characteristics that will be valuable to the campus and add to the campus community. But we also have to have this, and I mentioned it a little bit, this idea of a campus culture, a CU culture, where diverse communities feel like are woven into the very fabric of the university, where people feel like they belong. And I think that we have some challenges in that space. We just did this Cwc survey that was intended to provide a guide map to us of the work we need to do to make our campuses and the CU community a more welcoming place. And we just talked about this a little bit in the last meeting I was at. And that we've always known, and I don't know if we've always known, we've known for a while that we have a problem in this space. That survey is going to tell us where to direct our work so that we can create a campus culture, so that not only do we, when we recruit people, will they want to stay, but the people who are already here, we want them to stay too. And we need to make sure that we're building a campus culture where people feel like they belong.
Thank you. And I'd like to follow up with a second question. There's approximately 190,000 Latino, Chicanos, and Blacks in El Paso County. What will you be doing to retain them, knowing that historically, the students don't graduate in 4 years? You alluded to that.
Yeah, and so you're talking about the student population in particular there?
Yes.
Yeah, so to me, that's one of our biggest challenges and opportunities. And so we, once again, in this space, we've been talking about how we can do more to reach into the local communities to recruit more students from underrepresented communities to come to our campuses. And in fact, the chancellor just sent me a proposal a few months ago to invest in outreach at Pikes Peak Community College and at Pueblo Community College to try to recruit additional students to come to UCCS. And so it's those kinds of efforts. We're just creating a pre-collegiate program. Right? We're just creating a pre-collegiate program in Pueblo that is going to be targeted at reaching into middle schools, right? Into middle schools and high schools to try to get first generation students into the higher education pipeline. Now, not all of those students will choose CU, and we hope they all will, but they won't. Some of them will choose other colleges and universities also, and that's great, But we are making real targeted investments that we know will work to increase our presence in that space. In terms of doing more to guarantee or to ensure success, so to me, this is a problem in higher education in Colorado in general. Pretty much all of our institutions in the state don't perform at peer level when it comes to retention and graduation rate, especially for underrepresented students. And to me, that's the worst. So when a student comes to college and then we don't get them across the finish line, sometimes they'll leave with debt and no degree. That's the worst case situation. And that's exactly where we need to be focusing our work. And so we've been talking about what we can do to improve in that space, and we haven't gotten there yet. Obviously, the numbers speak for themselves. We haven't gotten there yet. And so it's the campus culture, relative to the first question you asked, I think that has to do with the second question too, creating a campus community where people feel welcome, where they feel like they belong, but also making sure that we're providing the support students need to be successful. Do they have a clear path in terms of cost? I recently met with some students here at UCCS, and I ran into a student who was a second semester freshman who was worried about how they were going to pay their bill the next month. For the next year. well, that's not good, right? And so students should have a clear understanding of their path to success at UCCS when they walk in their front door. You know, we talk about the inadequate financial aid that's available, and often when students leave, it's because of financial reasons. And one of the main reasons our financial aid is inadequate here, and it's inadequate at every institution in Colorado, and UCCS is no exception. One of the big reasons for that is because state funding in Colorado is not where we want it to be. We're 47th in the country when it comes to state funding. And one of the big impacts that has is student financial aid and student support. So when we talk about increasing student success, we have to be able to meet the documented need that these students have so that they can afford to get across the finish line also. So there are lots of pieces to the puzzle.
Go us.
Thank you. And mountain lions.
And mountain lions. And,
Okay.
Todd, the next question I think builds off of where you sort of left the answer for the last question. And this was something that got pre-submitted, and then we'll turn to an online submitted question. How do you plan, no, let me see here. Based on your experiences with both the Colorado state government and the CU system, what do you think are the most effective ways to advocate for increases in state funding for higher education?
All right, so the most effective ways to advocate for state funding. So the most important thing is for us to work together. And that's what I've been working so hard to do for the last few years. And higher education is working together this year to advocate for state funding for higher education. And it's awesome. It's working. The legislature, thank you, legislature, if any of you are watching. Thank you. And so the legislature approved an 11% increase for state funding for higher education this year. And so that's extraordinarily awesome. And so we need to be grateful and thank them. And but when it comes to state funding in general, like I said earlier, we're not doing so well in Colorado. And I think that the key for us right now is to communicate to the people of Colorado. We need to listen to the people of Colorado, listen to what they think, what they hear from them, what they want from us. And that's why we've been doing our outreach work. And we've been going all over the state, and we're talking about how we can expand this outreach work to reconnect higher education, to reconnect CU, to reconnect all of us to Colorado, to make sure that we're doing what they need us to do for them. But they also need to know what we're doing. And we need to get, it's so fun to go out and brag about CU and the incredible work that's going on our campuses. And what we've learned is that when we say CU, Chancellor Reddy was there at the meeting when this happens. When we say CU, people automatically think CU Boulder. We need to be super clear when we're out and about that we're not just talking about CU Boulder, that we're talking about the entire University of Colorado system. And we talk specifically about UCCS in Denver. And it's interesting when we're in some of these rural communities, we find that there's kind of a more of a connection. They feel more of a connection to UCCS than they do to any of our other campuses. And so when we're talking about state funding, the legislators need to hear from the people of Colorado who want to, and the people of Colorado need to talk about the importance of funding higher education. And for them to do that, we need to reconnect with them and talk to them about the incredible things we can do for them, but also listen to them about what they want us to do for them. And then the last thing is that I feel like one of the most effective things that we can do is to bring students to the Capitol. And we've done that this year, and we brought students to the Capitol so that legislators could hear directly from students. Because the reality is that state funding and tuition are directly linked. And so when state funding goes up, tuition, stays in check. And I would love to get to the point where state funding could go up enough that tuition could actually come down. Because, the JBC staff has done an analysis over time, and they've said that the main driver of tuition increases in Colorado has been the decline in state funding. And I appreciate very much the commitment the legislature has shown over the last couple of years to fund higher education. We have a long way to go.
All right, so the next question we'll take from those joining us via the live stream. My question here is, name a specific example within the last 10 years that the candidate furthered diversity, equity, and inclusion.
So lots to choose from on that one. I think what I'll point to right out of the gate is not something that I've done in the last 10 years, but something I did in the last 10 months. And this was in partnership with the Regents. So the Regents and I have talked a lot about how can we make progress in this space. And so we were fortunate to have the opportunity to accelerate the implementation of our strategic plan recently, which meant additional investments. And when you look at the DEI space in particular, we approved over $70 million of additional funding to advance DEI work on the campuses. And I think, I don't know how many months ago, 3 months ago or something, that we implemented that. And so I worked directly with the chancellors to come up with strategies on each campus that we could implement to accelerate progress toward our DEI goals that are in our strategic plan. So a couple of the examples of things that we did. So specifically here at UCCS, we put additional funding into scholarships, various types of scholarships to address this challenge that we have when it comes to financial aid and support for our students not being adequate to help them afford to get across the finish line. We also, that thing that I just mentioned about outreach into Pikes Peak and Pueblo Community College, it came from that. We funded it. So that was funding that came centrally that we provided to the campus to implement that additional outreach at Pikes Peak and Pueblo Community College, which is probably not even happening yet. It's probably going to happen during the next term. Another thing that we did was to increase the investment into the pipeline, like I just described. And so we talked about the need to put additional actual money into recruitment efforts so that we could make sure that we're having more diverse pools. I can't remember which campus. We also put money into cluster hiring. Different campuses have different strategies, but around cluster hires to try to really move the needle significantly in particular area. So there are a wide variety of things that we've done system-wide that we're to aggressively move forward in this space, but we need to measure and monitor those things to see if they're working, and if they work, then that's awesome, and then we'll do more of it. And if they don't, we need to jettison them and invest in things that will actually get us to where we need to be.
Thank you. So we have gone through the online and the pre-submitted. We are open to anyone who would like to ask a question here in person.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here and making UCCS your first visit.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Jessie Smith. I'm the Chief of Research here at UCCS.
Yep.
And one of the things you probably know that makes that UCCS is very proud of is in 2019, we were designated a Research 2 university, high research activity university, which is based both in sponsored program activity and in graduate student research success, in graduating PhD students. And I haven't heard you talk very much about graduate students. And I'm wondering if you can talk about the value of graduate education and what you see as your role in supporting graduate students.
So thank you for that question. So I almost mentioned it, but I didn't. So one of the items that we just funded was were additional supports for additional PhD students at UCCS. And so I believe it was 50, 20, I can't remember. 1 million a year that we put in for 5 years, I believe, that we're investing to fund additional graduate students here at UCCS. And that's a particular challenge here. I'm sure you could talk about that way more than I can. But that's a particular challenge here, is to have funded graduate student positions. And so that was one of the priorities that the chancellor and I talked about and that we approved. So, the research piece of our mission and the graduate education piece of our mission, which is not always in the sciences, right? And so it's when we talk about research and we talk about graduate education, it's important that we talk about it holistically. Sciences, social sciences, humanities, arts, the whole thing. And right, and so when we go around Colorado, that's one of the things that we've been talking. I mean, Tony Salazar is right out over there, and he heads up our outreach work. We've been talking about this. How do we bake in opportunities to celebrate our graduate education when we're going out and about? It's not just a matter of talking about some cool battery stuff that you happen to be doing here, but it's also, we've been talking, is there an opportunity to connect with people from throughout Colorado who have graduate degrees from CU in the arts? Is there an opportunity for them to perform when we're out on the road and things like that? And really try to reconnect kind of the nuts and bolts of what we do here to the people of Colorado. We do incredible work around democracy through our graduate education on all of our campuses to celebrate that, and to these days more than ever, let's talk about the work that we're doing in that space. And so to me, it's both money, making sure that we're providing, to the extent to which I can provide resources. I know most of it is a campus thing, right? But to the extent to which we have opportunities to advance that at a central level. But I feel that the best thing the president can do is to not just support the work you're doing, but to celebrate the work you're doing and to share it with the people of Colorado so they appreciate the extraordinary work that's going on here. Thank you.
Do we have another question from a member of the audience that's with us in person today? All right. We'll go back now to a pre-submitted question. And I think this one really speaks to the feeling that's on the ground. I'm a former CU employee myself, and our department in admissions in Boulder had the same impacts as many departments. And I think this person whose question got posed is speaking from a similar place. So our department is losing high quality people with alarming frequency because we cannot match the salaries they are being offered at our educational competitors. How can we address this crisis? And it is a crisis. We are down 1/3 of our team.
This is a problem system-wide, and it's on the academic and the administrative side, and it's not just CU. This is a challenge facing our whole country, but I think it's actually a little bit worse in Colorado than it is in some parts of the country. And so we have tons of vacancies, which so if you're watching online, get on our website, apply for a job here at CU. But we have tons of vacancies, and we're working hard to fill them. I think one of the challenges right now is getting people to apply, because the workforce pool is just thin. And the really horrible part of this problem is that it puts more work on the people who remain, and it becomes a horrible cycle, because then they get burnt out and then they leave. And so it's a big problem for us and for many employers in the state, and it's a problem at the other campuses also. So the first thing, the chancellors and I have talked about this, and the regents are very concerned about this. They talked to me about it as well. The first thing we need to do is make sure our HR offices are appropriately staffed. Honestly, we need to advertise these positions, and we need to fill them as quickly as we can. And doing that takes actual humans. It takes people to do the actual work. And we need to make sure that our HR operations are appropriately staffed and resources so that we can recruit. Second is that we need to, I want us to be a best place to work in Colorado. Those lists, the best places to work lists. I want to be on the list, and I want each of our campuses to be on the list. And that means creating a campus culture we talked about just a minute ago, so that people want to work here and want to work on our campuses and want to keep working at CU. And you can't put a price on that, right? Where it's someplace where you're proud to be, and someplace where you feel like you belong, and someplace you want to be. Another, though, is compensation, and compensation is a challenge for all of higher education in Colorado, and that gets back to that state funding issue, and just people ask me, well, where does state funding really hurt us? And it's really three things. One is this is the biggie, because this is our biggest expense. It's people. It takes people to educate people to do research, and so inadequate state funding results in lower compensation. It also results in less financial aid, which Javita could talk about every day. And it also results in facilities that aren't aren't being taken care of as well as we would like to take care of them. And so, so when we talk about this employment and employment problem, it's complicated, and the solutions are they're complicated, and we're not going to be able to solve all of the problems alone. And that's gets me back to the outreach work and trying to talk to people of Colorado about state funding for higher education, because at the end of the day, it's this kind of stuff that's going to pay for. It's like real. It's very personal. It's real. It's somebody's livelihood. It's somebody's financial aid so they can go to college, right? And so it affects real people, and so it's all linked. And but I'm aware of this, and the chancellors and the regents and I are all aware of this challenge and this problem. We know it exists, and we're committed to working to try to address it. But it's real.
Any other questions from the in-person audience here? Okay, well, if you have one, raise your hand or go to the microphone there, and we'd be happy to take them. Todd, what would you say is your greatest professional accomplishment so far in your career?
Well, hopefully that will happen like on next week. But I think it's helping guide the state through the Great Recession, and that was a big bump in the road. And we had to rebalance the state budget. I can't remember how many times, 12, 15 times within like a 2-year period. And revenues, I don't know how many people remember that from 2008 and 9 and 10, but we were just chasing the forecast down, and we would get revised forecasts, and they would be $1 billion lower each quarter than what we had forecasted. And so it was just horribly, horribly, horribly brutal. And Michelle talks about how miserable I was back then, but it was really, really hard. I mean, I had worked my entire life to increase funding for so many important things, for human services, for K through 12, for higher education. It was my thing. And then we have to start cutting the budget. And we're like, how are we going to do that? And so we just, honestly, I had an extraordinary team of people. I had a great governor who was committed to protecting important things. And then we had the blessing of federal relief funds, and President Obama was the first bill he signed at the Museum of Nature and Science, and it provided relief funds. $500 million of those relief funds, we figured out a way. It was hard, but we figured out a way to direct $500 million of those relief funds to higher education over a 3-year period. And we would have been cut. Like that's money that would have been cut from higher education permanently. And it was, it doesn't mean that higher education wasn't impacted. It was, just like K through 12, just like the human services. But we figured out so many creative ways to reduce the pain and to put the state on solid footing so that it would be ready for a strong recovery. And we're still underfunded in so many places in the state, but I thought it was just an incredible opportunity to protect things that needed protecting the most. And I learned the only thing that's more important than being the budget director when there's a lot of money, which is fun, is to be the budget director when there's no money at all, when you have to cut, because that's when your values and that's when your priorities shine through. That's where you see that's what you see when you see what you're going to protect. We figured out a way back then, so one of the very last things that we ended up having to do was to reduce or cut funding for state employees. But we figured out a way to do that that also protected their retirement. It was this really creative idea that actually people from the State Employee Association at the time had brought forward to us, and we implemented it. And so while it had an impact on state employees, it had a smaller impact than it would have had because we worked together and we found a path forward. And that was probably the biggest challenge I faced.
Great. So we have another question from our online audience. Is there any aspect of the system president role that surprised you when you stepped into the interim position, and how have you adapted to it as a response?
Is there anything that surprised me? Well, yes. So definitely things have surprised me. But one of the things that I think that that people didn't know how I would do. I didn't know how I would do, is when it came to working with our donors. And so I hadn't done work in that space, and Bruce Benson was a president and Mark Kennedy was a president, and the chancellors are highly engaged in this area, and that wasn't something that I did, and so I didn't know how I was going to do. But I jumped in with both feet, and it's going pretty well. And you can ask you can ask some of the donors here, and I enjoy it. And what's really interesting is that it's just so rewarding because our donors are so committed. They use their own money to advance our work. I mean, what an incredible thing, right? To dig into your own pocket to support students, or to build facilities, or to support research. I mean, what an incredible commitment. And they feel like they're part of us, and they are, and I'm so grateful. And so one of my surprises is that I'm actually pretty good at that, but also that I enjoy it, and it's like this incredible opportunity to form partnerships because state funding is inadequate, and when it comes to funding, when it comes to higher education in Colorado, it's our donors that often provide us with the boost that we need to do those magical things. And so when you see, and you'll hear about it from time to time on the campuses, you all are probably very aware of the special things that are happening here that wouldn't have otherwise happened without support of our donors. And it's what an honor it is to work with them.
All right. We have a number of pre-submitted questions that kind of got to this point of what do you see as the vision or opportunities for UCCS? So what are some of the values and opportunities you feel are unique to this campus, and how do you plan to help our campus leverage them?
So some of the things that are unique to this campus. So cybersecurity, right on the front of the list there, and the amazing work that's going on here, and just physically where this campus is located gives this campus unique opportunities to engage in Colorado in a way that some campuses can't. I mean, with the Air Force Academy right here, and the military presence in this part of the state, it really, that's why our agreement with Space Force was signed here at UCCS. That wasn't just a coincidence, it was here for a reason. And so there are incredible things that we could truly that we should be bragging about, and I talked about that a little bit already, but that are very special to this campus. Also, the health and wellness mission on this campus. So driving in, and you drive by the Hill building and that amazing partnership that we have right there, and what an example of how P3s can be successful and how they can work well. The wonderful work that you all do when it comes to nursing, and the nursing program you have here is just so special and such an incredible resource for Colorado, and we need to produce more nurses for Colorado. There's a huge shortage, and this campus is part of the solution. But I also think that UCCS has this special kind of beacon of hope, really, in this part of the state. this is an incredible campus that's doing amazing things that can serve all of this part of Colorado. And when we go around out and about, we hear that the people of Colorado, the people from southern Colorado and really eastern Colorado and northeastern Colorado, see UCCS as kind of this this special place where they feel connected. And so I actually think we can use UCCS to help elevate the entire CU system, to help show that that we have a way to serve all of Colorado, and I mean that, you know. So when we do our advertising, we need to talk about what are the special things about UCCS, so that people see that the CU system as a whole has something special, has something just for them, and for some people it will be because of the amazing work that's going on here.
All right. So the next question is one that's come up in the coverage on the board's announcement to make you a finalist, and some of the associated background work that folks have been doing. Our online participant is asking, as I was reading more about your experience and history with CU, I saw that your contract as interim president indicated that you would not apply for the role permanently, but that was changed later on. What changed your mind and the reasoning behind that?
So I did change my mind. Here I am. And so I did say, you know, when the board was kind enough to ask me to do this on an interim basis, that I wasn't going to apply, and I said that, and it was included in my contract, and the board amended that out of my contract before I decided I actually wanted to apply, but you know. Being in the job, I learned that I love this job and that I can do so much to make CU better. And you know, the CU community is an amazing place. There's lots of things that we need to be doing, you know, better and differently, and that's never going to change. We are a big place with a big budget, and lots of, you know, we have lots of people who work here. We educate tens of thousands of people, and we are going to be in the mode of continuous improvement forever. But I think that I can actually help make it better. You know, I know how to work within the CU community. I know how to work with the Colorado community, and I see these things that where we can make improvements. I look at our DEI space. I look at at research. I look at these opportunities that we have to improve in graduation and retention rates, to really focus on the things that people care about most, that we are hearing that people care about most. I've always wanted to do a marketing campaign for CU that celebrates the special things that are going on all of our campuses. And now we're doing it. You know, we are doing research on it, and we are actually going to do it. And so, you know, I changed my mind because I think that I can actually make a difference, and that I have the ability to get it done. And hopefully, you know, you all will agree. And so anyway, that's fine.
Great. So I'll just add one piece on that, which is that CU Regent policies stipulate as well that qualified internal candidates should be given an opportunity to apply for open positions alongside qualified external candidates. And the board took that into consideration before amending the contract. We have perhaps an interested donor listening into the live stream here. What are CU's prioritized needs if someone wishes to donate?
Well, Venkat, what's your phone number? So my first question to that donor, or to any donor, would be, you know, what's their interest? You know, because chances are that we're doing something that you're interested in, and so but we do have so many needs, and how do we prioritize those needs? I think it's actually a really good question. We have limited funds, and they're more limited than many of our peer institutions. So prioritizing our you know, how prioritizing is key. So to me, when we talk about that, we look at the campus strategic plans, and it really starts at the campus level to talk about what's important at the campus and what's that's not just me saying this is what's important here. It's not, honestly, it's not just the chancellor saying what's important here. It's the UCCS community having that conversation to decide what's most important. And I would be guided by that and by the strategic plans that are on the campuses. When we look at the system-wide strategic plan, we work really hard to make it clear that that strategic plan is not a campus strategic plan. It identifies system-wide goals on each campus. It identifies campus-specific goals in areas that we apply system-wide, like graduation and retention rate, like fundraising, like research funding. But in terms of the campus-specific priorities of where you invest, that's a campus conversation and I respect that, and I support that. That's exactly how it should work. And so when it comes to what are the most critical priorities here at UCCS, I would actually turn that question over to the chancellor so that we can have that conversation. I know what he talks to me about, though, and it's supporting the DEI work that's going on here. He talks to me about the research mission. He talks to me about the facilities on the campus and wanting to do all we can to improve those. He talks to me about housing and how housing has become so expensive here in Colorado Springs, and how sometimes it's a barrier to somebody saying yes and becoming employed here. And even if we can get to the place where we're providing competitive wages, if you can't afford to live here, that's a problem too. And so those are the kinds of things that we talk about.
Great. So we have about 10 minutes left. I'm going to put it out there again because I'm persistent. If there's any questions anyone wants to ask in the audience, please bring those forward. Another pre-submitted question that we got: given the growing mental health needs of our students, faculty, and staff, what are your thoughts on how we can begin addressing them from a system level?
So that's another area where my job is to do everything I can do to support the work that's going on the campuses. And you have an extraordinarily great mental health team here at UCCS. And I met with them recently, and I was just thrilled to see and impressed by the incredible work that's going on here. And I don't know if Stephanie's here. Oh, no, that's Stephanie Finley, the other one. So, councilwoman. So anyway, when we did the Cwc survey, we asked a question about disability, and what we found on that survey is that a much larger portion of each of our campus communities identified as having a disability than we had previously thought. And when we think that big growth is in this area of mental health, and it's not just students, it's faculty and staff too. And so this is a huge need, and it goes beyond the borders of the campus, right? So this is something that we need to work with our communities on too. But what can I do to help support this work? So this is also an area where I've talked to the chancellors about it. What resources can we provide centrally to help ensure that the campus is able to respond in this space, especially during COVID, it was especially acute, and so we provided emergency funds to the campuses to provide kind of a boost of funding, a temporary funding, so that campuses could respond during that period of time. The reality is that the resources available in this space are also inadequate. And we, but I don't want to say that in any way to diminish the good work that's being done, and because good work is being done here. But this is going to be an ongoing challenge, I think, for all of higher education in Colorado. We're talking about it at the statewide level. What more can be done on a statewide level to provide resources as well? But honestly, to a large degree, it comes down to funding and just having the human people available to provide the services that are needed right here on the campus.
Great. So in that same vein, perhaps expanding out from just the singular issue of mental health, how do you see yourself bolstering connections between each school and each campus's interaction with one another in the system?
Yep. So how do we promote coordination between the campuses? So we are blessed right now with good collaboration between the campuses. We have campus leadership that works together. We have provosts that work together, CFOs that work together, and DEI leaders who work together. And so that truly does create a cross-campus collaboration, and we learn from each other. I've been in meetings where, I've been in lots of meetings where we hear from one campus that they're doing something a certain way, and then people from other campuses engage and learn, and then they actually change what they're doing based upon those learnings. We can also incentivize faculty to work together, and so we've actually done that. And so we've created incentive pools of money that promote cross-campus collaboration. It was actually my predecessor, President Kennedy, who created a project that encourages campuses to work together. And I think the proposals have now been submitted, and so Vice President Michael Leitner is sitting right there, and he's going through those, I think, with the provost to figure out which ones to fund. I think that we can do more in that space too. Can we create opportunities that encourage people in the hard sciences to work more with people in the social sciences and the humanities and the arts? Are there opportunities there? And so there are absolutely ways for us to incentivize those kinds of cross-campus collaborations. But sometimes you don't need to incentivize them at all, because the people on the campuses want to work together, and it's just a matter of creating the opportunities for them to do that.
All right, we have just a few minutes left. Is there anything you would like to add before we wrap it up?
Well, thank you all very much. So you've been sitting there for an hour. I've been talking for an hour. So it has flown by for me. So, but thank you so much for the opportunity, and I truly appreciate the amazing things that you do here, and I hope that I will be blessed with the honor of getting to continue to lead the university and come back here and keep the conversation going, because honestly, this is like the interview stage, but the real work starts after this part, and there's a lot of work to do. So I look forward to doing that together. Thank you.
That concludes our forum for today. Please join me in one last round of applause for everybody who helped support today's efforts, our technical support, our event staff, our UCCS officer. Thank you all very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please do not forget to submit the feedback form listed here. We will take all of that into consideration. Thank you again for your time, and thank you, Mr. Solomon, for being here.